Hey everyone, this is Rick Gualtieri. Welcome to another Tales of the Midlist author. I have one that came in as a request this week, and just to get a little silly for a second there. If you enjoy these videos, please click subscribe or the like button, or both. It does help. And likewise, if you have any suggestions for things you'd be interested in hearing, please drop me a line. I'd love to discuss it. Worst case is well, it's something I don't know anything about. In which case, I try really hard not to speak on subjects that I have absolutely no clue about. So, that's about the best I can say there, or the worst, really. So this week I wanted to touch upon co-authoring. I've done it a couple times, mostly successfully, once or twice unsuccessfully. I think it's a pretty cool thing. You see a lot of authors out there doing it right now. Whether it's a shared world, whether it's true co-authoring, for any amount of reasons, it's pretty popular. And the reasons are there's several benefits to doing such. There's faster time to market in theory. If two people are working on a story, or multiple people, after you get the arguments about the outline and stuff out of the way, in theory it should go a little bit faster. There's spreading out the workload, because if I'm working on half the story and you're working on half the story, that should give both of us time to also work on other projects, which is also pretty cool. In theory, two minds are better than one, especially if you're both good storytellers and you both bounce each other's stories off each other's heads. You can usually get a much stronger story that way, just by by one person coming up with ideas and the other people going, "Hey, I didn't think about that." It's almost like having a beta reader there right as you're writing the story. And again, in theory, you potentially can have a shared audience and a greater reach. And there's a lot of factors involved there. It doesn't always happen, but if you're both in the same genre, say urban fantasy, and you're working on an urban fantasy story that you think will appeal to both your readerships, in theory, that gives you a greater reach. So you might be able to sell more copies. There are definite downsides. Payment is probably the biggest downside, because after all these years, the publishing platforms have yet to acknowledge the fact that co-written stories exist. You can list multiple authors on just about every platform, but they won't let you pay multiple authors or split payments, which is really friggin' annoying. So as a result, you'd have to go to an aggregator like Bundle Rabbit, perhaps, who will take a small piece of the cut. Or one of you will have to be beholden to the other to pay monthly, quarterly, bi-yearly, whatever you decide in the contract, from now until the end of time, pretty much. So that can be a bit of an annoyance, especially if you're going through every month trying to figure out, okay, here's Amazon sales, here's audiobook sales, here's print sales. And everything is 2 months behind with the report show. That can be a pain if you're not really good with the accounting. And if a co-written story doesn't work out well, think of it like an office romance gone sour. Sometimes those end amicably, and sometimes they end really badly, like an ugly divorce. So another potential pitfall. Now, when I say co-author, typically the assumption there is one of two things is going to happen. Either both of your names are going to go on the book, or you're going to do a shared pen name on the book. That's kind of what makes it co-authoring and not ghostwriting. Ghostwriting is typically, I pay you to write the story. Your name might go on it, but more often than not, I'm paying you to write the story. You hand me the story. I own the story. You go away, and I put my name on it. So that's what I mean by co-authoring. Now, when this request came in, I think it was more along the lines of, well, how do you work it? How do you work co-authoring? And the reality is, I can't get into too much detail there, because there's multiple different ways. Everybody does co-authoring a little bit different, depending on the project. When I wrote Like and Moon with my partner, Ruby Cruz, it was a pure 50-50 split. I'd write 4,000 words, then she'd write 4,000 words, both of us following a pretty comprehensive outline, and so on and so on. And then we blended it in editing to make it look like, it was just like one voice. There's the concept of splitting between characters. Like, hey, you take this character, I'll take these characters. There could be splitting in between tasks. Like, okay, I'll do the action scenes, you do the romance, things like that. There are multiple different ways to split that. Things that you need to talk about and discuss in advance. Communication is key. Similarly, I know I've discussed in the past the concept, well, I'll write the first draft and you edit it until completion. Splitting it that way. If you're writing in a shared world, it might be along the lines of you write the story and the other person really just gives it an editing pass to add voice, and that's it. There's multiple different ways of co-authoring, and it can be anywhere from like down the middle, 50-50, to like, one person doing the bulk of the work and the other person like, doing less. So I really can't go into too much detail there. More important than that is plan it out in advance. You want to discuss who's going to do what ahead of time, and there's a lot of things. I mean, something that sounds cool when you take a step back sometimes doesn't sound quite as good. So you want to think about these things before you commit to paper. Now, first of all, I'll say yes, you do want a contract. Even the best of friends, you will want a contract. That lists out things like, okay, who is doing what specifically, ownership, IP ownership, things like that, monetary split, all of those things. That's something that is very important in any co-authoring, and I'll just get that out of the way. But before you even get there, you want to maybe hash out those planning ideas. Things like, okay, are you looking to expand your world, or is this going to be a purely shared world? Are you looking to what are you doing with audience? Who's doing what with marketing? And you want to take a close look at somebody else and see, one, how do they work? What is their style? Does their style mesh with yours? Like if I'm a first person writer and you're a third person writer, we might not mesh well, too well. I'm just throwing that out there as an example. It can easily happen. Are our audiences compatible? Do I have a romance audience and you have a mystery audience, and we're putting something out there that's a thriller that maybe is none of our audiences? Or is it a case where I'm an established author, you're not an established author, so the reality is we're kind of like glomming off of my audience, and glomming is probably a harsh word, but we're primarily aiming it at my audience because it's larger with regards to marketing. These are all things to take into account. Ultimately, you want to find somebody you're compatible with, and it's the same thing with editing and cover artists and such. You ultimately want to find a co-author or co-authors that you are compatible with, and part of that compatibility is going to be hashing it out ahead of time, what you're going to do, those expectations, writing, editing, marketing, who's doing what, get it on paper, and follow through, making sure somebody follows through on it. Because if you don't have follow through, things can go bad. And with regards to that follow through, I would say you probably wouldn't put in the contract an out clause, where if one person is just not holding up their end of the bargain, what happens? For example, I have an 80,000 word manuscript that's been sitting on my hard drive for probably about 4 years now, and it will never see the light of day because it started off as this cool project. We were both working on it, and then we just kind of drifted apart. We wound up with different ideas of where it would go, and after a while, I think the other side just had no interest in finishing it, but it's like there's nothing I can really do about it because it's a co-owned thing, and there's really nothing that they can do about it either. So I don't think that will ever see the light of day unless we actually sit down and hash it out, which I don't think we've talked in a while, so I don't think that's going to happen. So wound up being a decent amount of wasted work, I think, on both of our parts. Accountability is going to be a big thing. I've seen far too many things where somebody has managed to reach the finish line. They have that book, and they're just like, for whatever reason, they're like, I don't really want to work with this person again. Maybe the story didn't take off, didn't find an audience. Maybe the other person's not enthused. Maybe the person didn't do their marketing. Maybe they were just a pain in the ass to work with. So these are all things you want to hash out in advance. And you want that out clause so that maybe if you start and you find a week into it that, wow, I really can't work with this person because they are going to drive me nuts, you can walk away without having sooner rather than later. So always consider that, always have a contract. And I would say, put in this, talk about what happens with that. In most cases, I would say, maybe what you owned, what you created, you own, what they created, they own. Or you might just say, hey, any characters were created solely for the story, none of us can own. We just have to shelve. But you have to pick something. You really do have to pick something to do, because it is covering your ass. And honestly, I think with co-authoring, that is the most, like, compatibility and CYA. Those are probably the most important things. Because if you find somebody you're compatible with, it will probably go pretty smoothly. But if not, well, like I said, think of those office romances gone sour. I think that's pretty much covers my thoughts on co-authoring. As I said, I didn't really want to go deep into like methods for doing it, because you have to figure that out yourself. You know, there's as many different ways to co-author as there are to edit a story, and you really have to find what works for you best. The best I can say is talk it out, communicate, and really decide if this is the best bet going forward. Because sometimes, as I said, you'll talk to somebody, it'll sound like a great idea, and you wake up the next day and be like, wow, I really wish I hadn't signed that, because this is a bad idea. Don't rush it. That's about my thoughts on co-authoring. Protect yourself, keep up your end of the bargain, and hopefully you will have a very good experience. And also, sometimes think about what you're doing with regards to that co-authoring. Again, are we doing a one-off? Is it share world? All of that stuff. And I'm rambling a bit. I'm jumping around a little there, but I just wanted to cover those thoughts. All right, my name is Rick Gualtieri. This is Tales of Midlist Author. I really appreciate you tuning in. And if you are co-authoring a story, hey, drop me a line in the comments. I'd love to hear about your experiences. And I will talk to you again really soon.